So now we're going into the more formal teaching learning situation. And we're still using the same basic model of learning design sequences. Like in the example of the museum, we have a setting. It's set up on basis of a curriculum with different kinds of resources and learning environments. And intentions, of course, related to this. And with a setting, someone has to interpret what's going on here, what am I supposed to do here? And they transform with different kinds of semiotic resources and media, interpret, work in sequences, make choices, and they do some kind of representation. And we call this the primary transformation unit. And here there's lots of interesting things to try to understand. How is the individual working with his or her choices, decisions, what leads to what? What are the sketches on the way, so to say, in the sign-making process? But we also had the students' positioning, interest and social interaction, as well as the teachers' positioning and interaction and interventions. On the way, we can also ask questions about the cultures of recognition. What are recognized as learning here, and what is supported, or what is made what we could call formative assessment here. What function as formative assessment? How does a teacher engage? And we have made studying in education and social science, in mathematics, and natural sciences, and we can see that how the teacher interacts is not only a question of verbal communication, but as much about where in the classroom and how the teacher relates to each student. As in the operation theatre, it could be just a gesture, a touch, and that's also part of the formative assessment, the formative evaluation, because you say something, continue, stop this, think of this, think of that. And then the student makes some kind of representation which is going to be evaluated and assessed. And then we are in the second transformation unit, which more is about meta-reflection, the teachers make grades, the thing is discussed, and it could be about the process and about the product. And we have lots of examples of how you can go into and study this transformation process. And in that, of course, we are also trying to make transcripts. If we make a film of a social interaction. So we are interested in how do people interact? How is the communication in terms of talking, speaking, gestures, positionings, and of course what is produced. And during this primary transformation unit, we come back to this elementary question: what is a sign of learning? What is recognized as a sign of learning here? And how can we understand learning? And then how do we assess this learning at the end? I will now give you an example from a case where we studied higher education in aesthetics. So it's one course in Roma at Dramatiska institutet, and one course in dance at the Dance Institute in the University of Dance and Circus nowadays. So we use the model to go in and ask ourselves, how can we understand their intentions and the framing of this teaching? So what kind of texts do we have? What kind of spaces are at place here? And if we continue, we made video recordings and pictures of the rooms. And then we went in to ask questions like, how are they positioning? What kind of social interaction is taking place? What is put in the foreground and what is not in terms of assessment? Which signs of learning are recognized and which are not? And we did video recordings here. And in the dance course, we are in a studio. There's nothing more than the teacher and the student. And it's very communicative. And it's very focused on what's going on. So the teacher asks the student, what do you want to do with this gesture? And the students explain. And the student explains this. And then the teacher says, well, what happens if you continue more like that? And it's like cooperation. And then we make a transcript about the speech, gestures, gazes, whatever you're interested in. And it depends on that. So it's lots of work in the transcript, but it says a lot, because to understand a learning sequence is not only the verbal question, it's a question of the verbal interaction. It's also a question about how you relate and actually communicate in different ways. And if we go back to the drama course, the teacher and student are sitting in the teacher's room with his library of books and films. He is actually the one who knows. You have the institution, and they never talk about the manuscript. It's about the pitch. How can you talk about your idea? What do you want to say with this? So this says something about cultures of recognition that has been established in two different environments at different universities. And of course we could see here that some of the conclusions are that the dance has more specific aims of the course, and the drama is more loose. The drama is more about personal development, and it's more oriented towards the teacher's evaluation of what's going on. So this is interesting also in terms of, in a complex education like medicine, what is it actually to know something about diseases, how the body functions, how you can cure, how you can cooperate with others to do something. So it's a very complex environment, and sometimes it seems like we know perfectly well what we are going to focus on and how we're going to assess it. My question is always, are there something more in here that we could evaluate, that we could assess, that we could understand, that could help people to learn to be someone who is capable of being in the profession of medicine?